Hello and welcome back. It's me, Valerie Monroe. I'm me, Bookwormy. Ready to read more of Journey to Nagwanis. Hey, we did that really well. Yes, we did. Now, the last time, if you remember, John was trying to get that Sasquatch out to his island to protect him, and Sasha and Will were chasing after them. And all of a sudden, John, for some reason, has turned around and is actually going toward them. And we're not sure why, but if we read on today, we'll find out. It says, and to his astonishment, John began heading back down the lake straight toward Sasha. What are you doing? Cried Brogden. John did not respond. He stared straight ahead as he drove the boat onward. And then he pulled the throttle up and brought the boat to a halt in the middle of the lake. I thought you said, Brogden began, but his voice broke off, and his eyes filled with fear as the distance between their boat and Sasha's grew smaller. They're coming right toward us. I know, and I'm sorry, John muttered. I know you think I can solve everything, but sometimes it's just not possible. John reached into a compartment across from the driver's seat. Brogden had no idea what he was doing, and then John walked the length of the idling craft. He reached over the swim deck to the hitch where the dinghy was attached. And if you remember, that's that small little boat that he blew up that he's got the Sasquatch on. Help! Cried Che from his perch near the Sasquatch's head. I've tried my best to help, John apologized. I really have. He untied the dinghy with the Sasquatch from his boat. It sat bobbing freely just as Sasha's boat pulled up beside them. Chapter 18, Tragedy. Sasha eyed the Sasquatch as it lay sprawled in the dinghy, and next to her, Will snapped picture after picture with a camera that sported a lens at least a foot long. Is he alive or dead? She demanded. It's your fault if he's dead, replied John grimly. He was seated on the swim deck near the bobbing dinghy. You're the one who shot arrows into him. Just to slow him down enough so I could examine him, Sasha argued. Any loss of blood, any loss of life is on your hands, John told her flatly. You should have thought of that before you let the arrows fly. He nodded toward the Sasquatch. I don't think he's alive. They all gazed at the still creature in silence for a time. It didn't so much as twitch an eyelid. Maybe he is dead, she said in an icy voice, but I still want him all the same. I can make a name for myself with a dead Sasquatch almost as well, or maybe better than a live one. Just throw the rope over here and we'll tie him to our boat. No, John replied. Is it a matter of money? She shot back. I can pay you well for your part in this. No, he repeated. You want part of the credit then? She pushed on. Is that it? I can mention you to the press. No. What happened next startled everyone. With one swift move, John reached down and sliced into the plastic dinghy with a large knife, which no one even noticed he had. The escaping air let out a whistle, and the dinghy deflated quickly. And then it began to take on water. Che rose up into the air and flapped furiously. Are you out of your mind? Shrieked Sasha. What are you doing, man? Will hollered as he continued snapping pictures. Stop taking pictures, Sasha yelled at him. Get a pole or a net or I don't know, just do something. He's going to sink. Help! Help! Che squawked. He turned on John and began to peck at his head. Everything was going wrong at once. Sasha and Will could not find any tool that they could use to rescue the Sasquatch. Already the hairy torso had sunk under the water. They were leaning out of their boat, trying desperately to grab him. Che kept up his relentless pecking, and Brogden sat immobile, shocked by John's actions. Sasha grabbed the bow and arrow that she had used on the Sasquatch and aimed it at John. Do something, you idiot, she screamed, or else. Will wrenched the bow away from her. Are you out of your mind? You're not a killer. But he's... The Sasquatch's arms and legs slipped under the water, and that was it. Where a second before there had been a Sasquatch in a dinghy, there was nothing left except a few large bubbles which rose to the surface. He was gone. If you want the Sasquatch, you're going to have to go fetch him, John snorted. He reached into his pocket and took out a yellow golf ball. He took aim and threw it into the water. It landed in the exact spot where the Sasquatch just minutes before was just been minutes before, and then it too sank and disappeared. Sasha flung herself into the water. She came back up a moment later, sputtering and crying about the freezing temperature and that her creature was there. She could see him. And then she pleaded for someone to throw her a rope. John started the boat's engine and steered down the middle of the lake with one hand, swatting Che away, who would not stop pecking at him. Help! 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 Che cried. John did not say anything to either Che or Brogdon, and he did not move back. The next chapter is very short. We don't know why John did that, why he deflated the raft, the dinghy, and let the Sasquatch sink. He must have a reason. But chapter 19 says, John offers no explanation for his actions. John cut the engine and let the boat float toward the water's edge. He had returned to the spot where they'd only been minutes before. I'll carry you and Che to shore, he offered. Brogdon knew he had no choice but to let John carry him. The only other way to get there would be to jump in and swim, and he had no desire to do that. After John dropped the anchor, he picked up Che, who lay exhausted on a seat, and hoisted Brogdon onto his shoulder. Brogdon had ridden on John's shoulder countless times and was always excited to see the view from such a height. This time was different, however. He did it only because he had to. Once he was on shore, he would not need John's help anymore. He had nothing to say to him. I guess he's got to be really upset. He thought John was going to help him. It took perhaps 20 strides for John to wade through the water. He set Brogdon and Che on land and then crouched down so that he and Brogdon were eye to eye. I'm sorry, John said. Brogdon looked down at his feet. He would not meet John's gaze. There was nothing that John could say that would justify the horror of what he had done. I couldn't think of anything else, John went on. You have to understand, we were in an impossible situation. Well, you didn't have to kill him, erupted Brogdon. You said you would help him, but you killed him. You killed him. Hot tears of frustration ran down his cheeks, and he wiped away at them angrily with the back of his hand. I didn't have a choice, John stammered. You need to understand. I will never understand, Brogdon said, looking at John directly. Never. I counted on you for help, and you killed him. He turned away and walked through the brittle beach grasses. John called after him repeatedly, pleaded for him to come back so he could explain further. But Brogdon never turned back. Che watched Brogdon leave, and for a moment it looked as if the bird was going to follow him. But after Brogdon had disappeared from view, Che flew off toward the southern end of the lake instead. John looked at his watch and gasped. Then he turned and ran through the water, climbed the ladder, and started the boat's engine. And after it roared to life, he spun the boat around and cut across the choppy waves in the direction of Sunset Island. Something's going on with John. He must have a plan. Not sure why he did what he did. But if you remember, John kept looking at his watch. There's something going on there. Maybe things are not as bad as they seem. We'll have to find out. There's only one way to do that. You want to tell them or you want me to? You got to join us tomorrow so we can keep on reading. Thank you, Bookwormy. Join us next time and we'll keep on reading Journey to Nagwanis. Thanks for tuning in.